Hey there guys, it's finally here. Long-awaited Rhino 8 has been officially released around 2 weeks ago, and in today's video we're going to go over the top 10 features that we found most interesting. You can download trial version of Rhino 8 for 90 days and try it out yourself. And on this page, you can find all of the improvements and the new updates. Now, let's see them in action. Okay, so this feature is long-awaited one. A lot of people wanted to have this in Rhino before, and now it's finally possible. Of course, we're talking about dark mode in Rhino. You go to the options, and under appearance, here you will find colors, and all you need to do to switch from light to dark is simply click here. As soon as you do this, you'll see that we're going to have a completely new interface with the dark theme. In addition to this, what I really like about the new interface is that you can click here on the bottom left corner, and this is going to toggle your left sidebar. You also have the same thing on the right side here, and you can simply click there, and it's going to allow you to have more room for modeling. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the dark mode yet because my eyes can still not adapt to these different colors of the icons, but maybe over time I'm gonna like it more. This next feature of Rhino is created specifically for architectural visualization in mind, and all you need to do to activate it is go to the viewport you have currently open, you click on this arrow, and you click on Monochrome. So this is the new feature called Monochrome display mode. And you will see when I zoom in that I'm gonna have very nice soft shadows, and I'm gonna have very nice lines on my project. So you may be wondering what's the difference between this view and regular Arctic view. So let me show you. When you click on the Arctic, you're gonna see that it's gonna be a little bit washed out. And of course you can play with the Arctic mode itself, and you can try to get it as close as you can to the original, but I found it Monochrome is really solid out of the box, and it's gonna give you the best result, or if you simply want to export your view from Rhino for architectural diagrams. The next feature we have is reflected ceiling plan. Now in Rhino you can actually create those plans in a much easier way than before. So I'm gonna show you here. We have like a simple room. I'm gonna hide this temporarily just to show you. So we have the walls, we have the top, and then we have some kind of plan for the lights, and then we have also the base. I would, for example, hide the bottom because we will need to hide the bottom so we can see the reflected ceiling plan. Reflected ceiling plan works just like you have, for example, the top view in Rhino viewport. Reflected ceiling plan allows you to look at your model from the bottom, exactly as it's supposed to be. That way you have both drawings that you can use for the base plan and also for the reflected ceiling plan. The way to activate this, for example, is to go to the top view. So I'm going to go to the top view here like this. Now the way to activate this reflected ceiling plan would be to simply go here under properties, under projection. Instead of parallel, we would switch to parallel reflected. So this is a new kind of perspective we have. We call this parallel reflected. And as soon as I click here, you will see that I'm gonna be able to see my reflected ceiling plan. And of course, from here, you can either use, for example, Monochrome to export the drawings, or you can use Make 2D to create the drawings and so on. The next feature that I wanted to show you is called section style. And you would access section style by clicking on any geometry you have in your model. And then under the properties tab, you will have here on the bottom a new addition called section style. And here the default is by layer, but of course you can modify it by parent, by clipping plane, or custom. So what does this mean? Let's first create a simple clipping plane so that you see how this works. Let's use, for example, this clipping plane from here. I'm going to create a vertical one. Let's go from here and let's go until there. Okay, so we have the clipping plane, and now we can, of course, we can flip it. Just type flip, and you will see that we're gonna have a situation like this. Okay, so nothing fancy. Everything is as it's supposed to be if you have the default properties. However, let's say that you want to modify the section property of this layer, of this wall. So this means that you can come here and you can select that particular layer, and you can modify how it's going to be shown. So for example, so this is the walls layer here, and if I scroll to the right, you will see that now I'm gonna have section style option here. So I can simply click here on the none, and that's the place where I can control the section style for this layer. In this case, the pattern is set to none, but of course we can modify this and we can create different type of hatches we have. So in this case, let's do something like maybe this type of hatch, and I'm gonna modify the rotation to be, let's say, 45, and the scale, let's set it to 1 for now, and let's apply it. Let's see how this would work. You will see here right away that we have that hatch style applied. Even if you go to, let's say, Monochrome, you will see that hatch applied right there. Of course, you can modify that by anytime by clicking on the custom and placing and modifying the color. For example, the color is set to object here, but we can put some other color, let's say, for example, red. Click OK, and you will see that we're going to have different type of output here. This only is for the boundary. If you want to modify the color of the pattern itself, you can do so here. Also, you modify this to red, and you will see that we're going to have a live update of our section. Once we modify the position of this guy, of the clipping plane, it's going to follow what we have here. In addition to this, you can modify every single one of them. So for example, now let's modify the ground below, and let's change to something else. Let's find the ground layer, there it is, and let's click on the none. And here you'll be able to select again the pattern you want. In this case, let's maybe use something else, but if you want to check out which hatches you have, you simply need to go to the options first, and from here under the hatches, you'll be able to find the collection of your hatches that you have in the file. If you want to have some additional ones, you can always import them from here, and you can put them in your drawing as well. In this case, we only have these default ones. So I'm going to pick some of them, this one, for example, grid, and let's keep the default just to see what the result would be. Okay, that's fine. Maybe I would modify it. Maybe I would change the scale a little bit, so I can do maybe a 0.1. Let's see how that would work. Click OK. Okay, that's too small. So let's do a 0.5, for example. And let's keep it as maybe black, and black here as well. Okay. Now you can see, you get the idea of the section styles that we have. Of course, you can modify this for any other one. So I'm gonna simply now randomly modify these hatches, so you can see here the hatch as well. You can control how you see this in the viewport. It's important to note that all of this is gonna be remembered even if you click here and you modify the shading mode. Even if you do shaded, if you do, for example, Arctic, it's gonna memorize everything, and then you can continue to export your 3D sections from there. The next feature we have is called sub-D crease. This is really powerful feature, and you will see that this sub-D shape doesn't have any creases. You can see here that everything is fluid. There is no creases whatsoever. If you press tab, you'll see the different representation of the same object. In this particular case, we do have a full crease along this straight edge. So if I press tab, you will see that this edge in the middle is gonna be darker. That means that we have crease on that side. So that's all good. We had that feature from before. Then we have this next example that is called partial crease, and I wanted to show you here to see the blend. So in this case, we have only these edges from here to here crease, and we intentionally left out this edge and this edge without a crease so that you can see the transition that we get. So that's the normal transition that you would get going from a creased edge to a non-creased edge. Now, what we have here is this new command. It's called sub-D crease. So this command is called crease. You will see here if I copy this, and the way that it works, you simply select the edges you want to crease like this, and you type crease. There we go, and you get a crease. However, with this one, the command is called sub-D crease. So the way to activate it would be to simply select, for example, the edges that you want to crease. In this case, I'm going to select all of these guys here, and let's do sub-D crease. When you click there, you will see that we have this window, and it allows you to select the percentage of how sharp you want this corner to be. You can actually select every individual vertex, but you can also leave it as it is. If you leave it as 0, all of this is going to be exactly the same. Nothing's going to change. So for example, if you want to modify one of those points, you simply click here, and you type here from 0 to 100. So 100 is being the heaviest. So if you want to have the heaviest transition, you would type 100 here, and you will see the result right away. If you leave this as 0, you will again see what the transition would look like. I'm gonna leave it like this now, and you will see that like I have very sharp transition here, although it's not as sharp as the crease command, and then it slowly transitions out to this part here. So this is the example when you have one side at 100%, this one is at 0, and now this example here, it has both of them at 100. So both this point and this point is at 100. You can see the difference between the full crease and this sub decrease 100%. You can see that it's not exactly as sharp as this one. And that's, again, this is the example that I just shared with you here. And in this last example, we're going to talk about the combination of using the regular crease and sub decrease. So here you can see that I have creases on these sides here. And the way that I created this was I took this part and I created the crease only here. So only on these edges are the regular creases. So I'm going to type crease like this, and you get this shape. And then this edge and this edge would get sub decrease. And now you can see here that it's going to recognize that this is a full crease. And now again here you would click, you would say 100 because you want this transition to go smoothly. I would type here 100, enter, and you can see that that's going to be the modification. And then it's going to transition out to 0. Same thing here, I click here and I type 100, enter, and I click to finish off the command. You will see that this result is not going to be perfect, and you can see that this vertex is going to be a little bit funky. If we do, for example, zebra, you will see here that all of these stripes are meeting at this point. So just so you know, this is not a bug. We had this conversation at Rhino forum and we had similar example here. And again, what we know here from Dale, from McNeel, he said that this is not a bug. And the workaround is to use different edges in addition to this. This means that the way that we can mitigate this issue would be to create a couple of more edges along the way. So we can create edges going around here, and that would solve a little bit this problems. So let me show you how this would look like. We would simply create one edge here with insert edge command, and I would get it very close to this part. Same thing I would do on the other side, here, here, and here. Insert edge, and this would give me better transition here. You see that this transition is really, really smooth. But then you need to actually finish off with these guys here. You need to kind of have really good polygons along the way if you want to make this smooth. So this just means that you will need to fix a little bit this area here. Okay. And that's how you would get that nice transition. This next feature is called ShrinkWrap, and it's extremely important when it comes to 3D printing. And if you want to prepare your models for 3D printing, you would definitely want to use this feature because it saves us so much time. As you may know, the 3D printed model has to be watertight, and this feature allows you to do just that without much hassle at all. So instead of, joining all of these faces together and then trying to Boolean union the whole thing to get the STL file out, you can simply select whatever you want and you can create the shrink wrap around it. It's really important that your model is surrounded with surfaces from all sides, because if you don't surround a model with your surfaces, you're gonna get weird results. So for example, if you want to 3D print this guy, we would need to have that surface below, because otherwise it will not work. So let me just show you. When we select this and we type shrink wrap, and now you have a couple of options: the target edge length, how dense you want your mesh to be. So let's go for something like 3. I'm gonna keep the offset at 0, smoothing 0, polygon optimization 10%, that's totally fine. Let's not fill the holes here. And now you can do the preview. When you click the preview, this is gonna calculate, it's gonna create the mesh, and you'll be able to see the final results. So for example, right now, you can see here the face counts is almost 11,000 polygons. And when I click OK, you will see that I got a mesh which is totally messed up. This is unusable. So that's why we would need to use this surface as a bottom. Once we use that surface, and once we do shrink wrap like this, we can pretty much use the same iterations. Let's click on preview and let's click on OK to see the result. And this is our mesh. Here it is. And of course, it's not ready yet. It's not there yet, but you can see that now we have the whole thing wrapped up. So now I'm going to go to the extreme and I'm gonna do the following. I'm gonna select the whole thing. I'm gonna do shrink wrap, and I will do something like 0.5. And when I click OK, you will see what that result would give us. So here is the final mesh. Let me isolate it so you can see it better. And I'm gonna zoom in so that you can see that we have all of these details ready. This is of course very heavy file. It has around 800 megabytes, but you can see that we have all of the details for the windows and all of this. So now you can of course take this to your 3D printer and you can expect to get all of these details in. One thing to note is that sometimes you may want to increase the size of your file to scale it up so that you can do this manipulation, then scale it down to the size of the 3D print bed. This next feature is extremely important and valuable. I'm sure you guys heard about Gumball. Gumball is this pointer that you can use to scale or to extrude your objects and your surfaces. But now you have a lot of different improvements using Gumball. So let's start with this single line here. When you select the line, you're going to see that we have a couple of additional symbols here. You can see that we have this minus sign, and also we have a small tooltip that's going to tell us cut both sides and numeric entry. This means that we can only use this curve if we use this minus sign to cut through the object. We have the option to do this on both sides, and the way that this works, let's say that you have a box like this here, and then you have a curve that it's aligned with its side. You can simply take this minus sign, you can drag it like this, and you will see that the box is gonna get cut in half, and we're gonna have perfect Boolean split. The same thing would happen if you, for example, put it in the middle. Let's go a couple of steps back, and you use it as both sides. When you hold shift, it's gonna do the same thing in both sides, and it's gonna cut it through like this. So that's very useful command and feature that we have now. The other thing we have is when you zoom in and when you go to this ball, you have a couple of different options. For example, when I take this curve and I hold Control here, I'm gonna get open extrusion like this. But if I don't hold Control, I'm gonna get the complete object. So I'm gonna get the solid out of it. So when you hold Control, you simply have the option to have only the edges extruded. The next one we have here, of course, is both sides on Shift. So when I hold Shift, and when I press this ball and when I bring it up, you can see how we have the handles in both directions, and it goes both ways. So that's what we can do with this one. Another feature that I wanted to show you is when you start manipulating your object. For example, let's say that you want to extrude this side only. Let's say I hold Control, Shift, and Select, and then you see that we have a ball with another ball on top of it. And now you have this extrude option as a default. Then you have open extrude, then you have extend face and copy. So extrude is like a regular one. Simply drag it up and you'll see that it's gonna give you another set of faces, but they're gonna be connected with this guy. Okay. When I go Control Z, let's do it again. This time let's hold Control. When I hold Control, you'll see that I'm gonna get something like this. I'm gonna have individual faces extruded. All right. And then we have, after that, we have extend face. When you hold Shift, this is just gonna move everything together like this. So it's extending the face like this. So what we can do, we can select the face, we can hold Shift to extend the face. And then of course you have numeric entry, which means that you simply click here and you type, let's say 5, and you get the same extrusion on the top. However, there is another option I wanted to show you guys, which is a new thing. When you come here to the Gumball, right click on it, and you'll have this option that says merge faces after extrude. So this can come in handy, of course. If you want to have the seamless model, you can select this, and this means that whenever I do extrusion now, you will see that it's gonna follow. Okay, so whatever I do here, whatever option I choose, it's gonna give me the same extrusion. Okay, so let's try with and without. So this is with. I just select, I extrude, and I don't have any edges here. But if I don't have this on, and when I extrude, you're gonna see I'm gonna have this edge. Okay, so that's with merge faces on and off. Very useful command. This feature is one of my favorite ones in the top 3, and it's called push and pull. You've probably heard about push and pull method from SketchUp, and now we have everything and much more like that in Rhino. So how does this work? There's this icon here that's called push or pull, polysurface faces. And the way it works, it actually recognizes the regions on the particular face. In this particular example, we don't have any kind of divisions. So if you use this command, it's simply gonna allow us to extrude it like this. However, when you have some kind of line, so let's say we wanna do some kind of curve on this surface like this, And now if I use this command, it's gonna ask me to select the surface to push or pull. Simply click here, and just like that I can extrude it outside. Okay, and the same thing would happen if I do it, let's say somewhere around here. If I do it here, and if I do again push and pull, I can now go back, and you can see how we have this red box. It means that it's going to subtract from that particular 3D model. So now when I just click, let's say here, you'll see that I'm going to have something like this. So exactly like it works in SketchUp, but even more. For example, here, let's say that you want to connect these faces here. You can do push and pull, and if it goes like this, it's going to go straight up. But what we can do, we can tell it, okay, I want a different direction. So I'm going to click on the direction here, and I'm going to choose my direction to be this way. And now when I approach here, you'll see that it's going to also merge everything that we have. It's merging, and it's also subtracting the elements. For example, this can be used if you want to make holes for your project. So let's create something like that. Let's create a simple box, and I'm going to create a simple box like this. And another command that's very useful one, it's a new one, it's called inset. So you simply select the face and you type inset, and it's going to ask you what is the amount. You say, let's say 0.3, for example. Click enter, and now you have that inner surface. Now you can use push pull, and you can kind of delete all of this together. There you go, you have the box. And now with this, you can actually create doors, windows, whatever you want. So for example, let's do a rectangle, vertical one, and let's create some kind of resemblance of a door. Again, push and pull, click here and delete, just like that. And now I wanted to show you another feature that is really powerful. It's called AutoCplane. And what this does, this allows us to manipulate our construction planes much faster. So for example, if I want to create windows here, I would need to create a special construction plane for this part, and then I would need to draw on top of it. However, if you have this turned on, you can turn it on from here, and you simply select Control Shift and click, and that's gonna reorient the C-plane to that guide there. And then you can simply say, okay, let's do a rectangle, and I'm gonna create a rectangle here for the windows. Okay, and then what I do here, again, I do push pull, and I take this, bring it in, and there we go. If you wanna bring this back on, simply turn off AutoCplane, and it comes back to what it was before. So it's very handy and useful if you want to work on multiple facades at once. I also want to emphasize that this tool, push and pull tool, works really well. Even if you have some, more complex geometries, it's gonna pull it off. So for example, if I have, let's say I have a line from here to here, and I use this line and I use push and pull, and for example, I take this part and I bring it all the way here. Let's say until the middle here. You can see how it's gonna cut the whole thing. Okay, and even though, like, I can even cut all the way through, so I can just use push pull, click here, and go all the way till the end, and then we're gonna have something like this. Okay, this also works with any kind of shape, of course. So for example, let me show you. If you do AutoCplane, click here, and then you create any kind of polyline that you want, like this, and then again you just do push and pull, and it's gonna work like that. Okay, you have another option. Let's switch to this one, and you can do, for example, sketch. And sketch tool, simply it allows you to draw pretty much. Okay, so you can simply connect it here, click enter, and now you do push and pull, and it's gonna work as well with no problems. Okay, you can also do reverse. You can go all the way until here, and you're gonna see that it's gonna have no problems cutting through all of the buildings that we have. So once again, one of my favorite commands and great feature that's going to help us speed up our modeling process a lot. Okay, now I have the feature that I really like. This is again in my top 3 features, and it's called selective clipping. And selective clipping allows us to create multiple sections within the same detail. And in this case, you will see what this means. So for example, here you can see I have a wall. I have a wall that has different layers, and you can see here that we have a couple of different section planes. So we have the planes that are located like this, and then we have the ones which are created by an angle, and both of these have the same properties. Let's come here and let's select these individual clipping planes. You can see here that I have them in my layers group here, and all you need to do to activate them is simply click on those and go to the properties, and enable them in perspective. So I'm going to select all of them like this, and I'm going to enable them so that you can see the effect that we can get with this feature. I'm going to allow them to be visible in perspective, and just like that we have the ability to see through our wall, and you can see the layers of the wall. So the idea here is that you have the option to select which layers will be clipped. In every single one of these clipping planes we have this new property. When you go here on the object properties and clipping plane, you have the option to select to include the selected layers or to include the objects. So in this case you can see that we have 5 layers which are included in the cut. So this means that all of these layers, for example, this is like layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, they're all included in the cut itself, but we didn't include the last one because we want it to be visible. So the way that you would do this would be to simply select the layers and select the ones that you want to clip. Let me show you what would happen if we turn this off. So let's say that I select these two clipping planes. They have the exact same 5 layers selected to include in this section. I'm gonna click on the X, and you will see that now these are not gonna be clipped. You see? So for example, here is 0, and also here it's also 0. Okay, so if you want to cut this part as well, you would need to include all of those 5 layers. So I'm gonna click on the layers, and I'm gonna go all the way until like all 3 of them. So this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Click OK, and you can see how the clipping just occurred. But this is only, of course, on this one. If you now want to have the same properties on this one, you would need to do the same thing with layers. So you need to include them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And now it's clipped. And all of these are possible to modify. You have 2 options. You have the option to include the selected object in the clipping plane or exclude. So you can do either or. Both of them are valid. It kind of depends on how complex your design is. So this is a great feature and one of my favorite ones in this newest release. One last thing I wanted to mention is that you can also control the depth. So for example, you can, let's say, take this guy here, and you also have the ability to control the depth, the custom depth. You click here, and you can see here how this part is controlling the depth of how far I will be able to cut. Okay, and that's allowing us to manipulate this in a much better way. Let me just maybe show you this in a different example. I'm gonna select all of these guys, and I'm going to turn them off. And I'm going to create a completely new clipping plane just to show you this feature. Let's create a simple clipping plane here. I'm going to bring it up like this. I'm going to rotate it, let's say 45. And I wanted to show you what the depth does. If you go here and you go custom depth, and here you can control the depth in meters. Let's say 0.5. And you can see here with 0.5 how I'm able to cut only that part. Okay, I can use flip command if you want to flip on the other side. And by moving this plane, you can see here how I'm only selecting that individual part of my wall, and I can do this many different times in many different areas. And you can have like boxes of different planes that are going to be cutting through your object. For example, you can rotate this to, let's say, 45 as it was before. And then what you can do, you can select this one, you can copy it, and now I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna do 90, and you will see here, just like this, we have the ability to create just this detail. Okay, you can see when I go up and down what's gonna change, and just like that. So this is like controlled by the depth, and if you have these 2 turned on, that would give us this particular detail that we can later on play with and export in the layouts. If you're an architect and you're looking to quickly learn Rhino and Grasshopper, we have a completely free training on our website that's going to help you discover and learn the core principles of Rhino, the basic logic behind Grasshopper, and you'll find out what these tools are capable of in architecture. Go check it out, the link is in the description.